How you doing, everybody? Nick DiVirgilio here, and it's GearFest 2019, and I am super excited to have Benny Greb in studio with me.
Good to see you.
Man, and I apologize ahead of time if I just totally fanboy out here on you.
Oh no, my God, no.
I'm joking, but man, you are one of my favorite drummers of all time.
Oh man.
And it's just really great to have you here, because we've known each other for a long time, but we haven't really had a chance to hang out that much.
True.
We got to jam last night at a party down after the GearFest was over. It was great fun, and I've been learning from you for quite a long time.
Oh.
And I just find the way you educate in drums is just really unique and clear as a bell.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
really cool. So my first question for you is when did, well, you've been playing drums for a really long time, I imagine, right? Since you were a kid.
Yeah.
But when did you feel the need to teach? How did that teaching part of your physicality, your being come out?
Well, first of all, thank you for that lovely introduction.
welcome.
It's almost too much niceness for a German guy to handle. But to answer your question, I think when you really like to go into details, or you're frustrated and you try to find solutions and stuff, and then you dig deep and you're a little bit obsessed about it, it's almost something that you don't have to tell people about. People will ask you about it.
Sure.
Because it shows up in your thing, and what are you doing? I'm working on. So I think it came, I don't really remember how it came, but there were always meetings and guys over to be like, yeah, what do you do? And just an exchange of things. And when I then studied music, it was of course one of the things where it's like, okay, I maybe can get a couple of students and just drive around and do this. So I always did this on the side a little bit, and I professionalized it over the years.
Right. Okay. And did you have teachers from your whole life as a player?
I didn't have a drum teacher for the first 6 years.
Okay.
So I was a self-taught, so to speak, and then got into it, then studied music, and then moved to Hamburg. That was an important step to kind of go into a music city where there were jams and sessions and stuff.
Sure.
And I think what might be different is that not only did I analyze after gigs and sessions and listen back and make a list of like, what did I like about it, what didn't I like about it, and then get self-loathing and frustrated and then working on it. I did the same thing with clinics and teaching. Okay. So I sometimes recorded my practicing, I recorded my teaching, I recorded clinics, and I really sat down and was like, how can I do this better? How can I make this clearer? So I attribute much of that to my first clinics. Definitely weren't clear at all. So that is also a learning process.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere and build from there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do that all the time with gigs and singing, especially when I'm out front.
Sure.
I mean, if you're afraid to watch yourself and hear yourself do your thing, that's
already
hard
a lesson, right?
It's hard to get past that point, right? You got to
Yes.
know what you're doing. So
Yes.
that's very important. Benny has a number of books and DVDs and all kinds of stuff out there. The Language of Drumming is great. The Art and Science of Groove. What I dig about, and tell me if I'm wrong, the way you vocalize teaching of drums is how you make it just really common sense. Nicole, that's a word, right? One of my favorite things you did on, I think it was the Art and Science of Groove, in there, you have one spot where you go, I keep hearing that drums are loud.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing what you said.
Yeah.
And you were talking, drums, I don't hear anything from this drum right now. And it's up to the player to take
Right.
ownership of their instrument.
Right.
When did you learn or figure that out for yourself?
Well, I first figured out for myself that, of course, to blame is an instinct. And I had this in the beginning of like, I wasn't born in the right country. I was very influenced by the American culture, of course, and English rock and roll music and punk as well, and jazz, of course. But so there can be a lot of things, and a lot of when you push responsibility away, it basically is very crippling, because if you say like, there's nothing I can do, then maybe sometimes without knowing it has a feeling of relief in the first moment. It's like, there's nothing I can. But on the other side, you're also taken away like power and control of like, is there anything I can do, and I can steer my own path, so to speak.
Right.
So I realized that accepting responsibility as much as possible and being like, you know what, I'm responsible for my sound. When the singer has this Robert De Niro face, this when you play and they're like this. It is not because I have the wrong gear or something. It's because I play the cymbals too loud and have to work on my internal dynamics, and And no one ever said, oh, the bass drum is way too loud. They always said like, oh, the snare, oh, the cymbals, you know. So, and it's things like this where I also through recording, many people record themselves and they say, yeah, of course it doesn't sound good on the iPhone, right? And like it's really, but it's just a shift in, it's just a decision. It's not a tool or a talent.
Right.
It's just a shift to say like, you know what, I will check this out. I will try to do it as best as possible. And then if you sound great on an iPhone, of course you'll sound amazing anywhere.
Sure.
So this is one of the things, this is a big part, and I want to have that in my education to be like, yeah, you can do this, and these are the steps to do it.
Sure.
I always loved the Albert Einstein thing who said, explain things as simple as possible, but not any simpler. So you still get the full thing, but you hopefully don't waste anyone's time.
Sure.
You go like this. And of course, some older guys sometimes I think make the mistake that they assume certain things. And I always want to try to put like, okay, maybe you're new to this, boom, 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 and then go deep very quickly. And then it usually works. And even for advanced players, it's great to say like, okay, this is the environment we're in, these are the basics, and now we're gonna go deep. Okay. And maybe there's something someone has missed. So the experience that common sense is not very common it helps as well. Sure. To be like, you know, I should know this, but, and again, I'm the same way. And yeah, so I love teaching, I love education, and I love like looking in all the corners and then going deep.
So were you a good student in school growing up as a kid in different subjects?
I really gotta go. Yeah. Oh man, no.
Did it cross over to those things?
Yeah, school wasn't really my forte. Okay. But because I found something that I really cared about, and then I was kind of focused on that without knowing. So I went to school and I endured that. And then I went home. I went into the basement. I did basically three things. I was eating a little bit. I was playing the drums and watching Star Trek. So these were the
okay. Whatever.
It was a very happy childhood.
There you go. You play all kinds of music. You play with other musicians all the time. You have bands and side things like that. But you made a real career out of education and teaching clinics and your books and DVDs and that kind of stuff. When did you realize that you could really make a living as a player? Because I mean, we try to tell people like this all the time. There's a million ways. What's the term? A number of ways to skin a cat, or that kind of thing. There's a number of ways to make a living in the music business. You don't necessarily have to be a rock star. You can there's other ways to get some cash in your pocket.
Many ways.
So when did that come to like, well, this could be a career?
Well, first it was, I really love this so much, and I do it all the time anyway.
Right.
So it would just be great because I don't know what else to do.
Okay.
And then my mom, I gotta give credit to her. She was like, why don't you do that and study? And I'm like, okay. So I had to move into this other town to study music. And then when I moved to Hamburg, I had kind of 1 year that I set for myself because my grandma, of course, was like, there was like pressure from the Bavarian family tree of saying like, so when do you come to your senses and come back to Bavaria, you know? So I was like, no, I will not, it will work. So I set myself and said like, if I, after 1 year, am not able to finance my own place to live and have a car to go around and do my thing, I will go back to Bavaria. Now it sounds very heroish because it worked. Maybe I would have given myself another year or something. Right. But so that was kind of a deadline I set to myself, and I thought like, okay, I'm gonna try to get a teaching job. I'm gonna try to play in, even with, and many have different approaches on this. I had a couple of colleagues that said like, I'm fine with working at a cafe and then doing the music I like. For me, it was always, I'd rather play music that is not my main favorite thing or in a setting that's not my favorite, but I'm playing. Right. I'm a player. I'm one of these guys and I can also learn there. So I always was like, I want to do only this. Okay. And that worked well for me, but I have many colleagues that from playing in a circus to playing Broadway to playing in a big band that's everyday studio work to, of course, freelance and writing your own things or educating. That's one of the beauties that you can have these Lego pieces and you can arrange them however you want in our industry.
In your DVDs and a lot of stuff I see you behind the camera. the way you talk, the way you act, it seems like to me you've studied acting, and I could be wrong. Like there was an SQ2, Sonar SQ2 drum video that we saw at NAMM a couple of years ago, and it was like a mini movie. I mean, dressed to the nines, really thought out. Like there was a script, right? You played parts along with drumming and stuff like that. So it was really cool. So did you study acting? Did you study what it was like to be behind the camera? Your speaking voice, vibe. Explain that a little bit.
Thank you, first of all. Yeah, well, I always had a passion I love movies. I love that kind of stuff. And through a little bit of the singing and a little bit of being on stage, there was a show called Auto that I did with a guy called Christian von Richthofen. And he's an amazing singer, but an amazing actor. He worked with amazing directors. And we did this show together that revolved around having a car, a little bit stompish, but having a car, playing on it with hands, playing on it with sticks, and basically through the show always destroying the car. The last piece was a Tchaikovsky ballet with sledgehammers, and we just like flattened the car. And so on the rider it always said like, we need towels, a donut, and a car. So, and that was a fun show. It was just very, I always hurt myself so much. You always got cuts and like little, and after a while I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's like, the audience loved it when you stood at the end and you were kind of bleeding and doing this thing. They were like, and I'm like, I gotta play tomorrow, man, my hand is. So he gave me a lot of tips, and I learned a lot from him about how to present. And he always would be like, "You say so many ahs," or like, and so he would kind of. So this is a thing, but I think mainly it comes from. There is a mantra that when I work on a project or I finish a project, or I have an anniversary with my girlfriend, whatever it is, I always think, okay, I'm planning this dinner with my girlfriend. How could this be even better? What could make this even better? And it's a very simple trick that everyone can use. There will be something coming up. There will be some creative. Oh, get the biggest balloon you can find. It's silly, and just fill the room with it, and whatever. Or with projects like this, with the DVD, it was like, of course we can have like a black curtain, get into the basement. I can talk about all that stuff. But how could this be even better? Maybe we can select different locations. Maybe we can, have the lighting a certain way. Maybe I can. So this is kind of the simple, and I hope it makes sense and it's not too.
No, but it's getting behind all of the aspects of who you are, and what you're trying to convey to people.
And we always have so many aspects. I'm fascinated with drummers sometimes, thinking, okay, I'm doing my drumming, I'm tuning my drums. Maybe sometimes they don't even do that, but I'm tuning my drums and I'm taking care of my stuff. And then the rest of the chain is out of my control and out of my business. And I'm fascinated with how. And some people might call me control freakish, but it's a beautiful thing to be like, I know if I use that mic and I know if I do da-da-da, I actually get what I want, or I get a better result. Yeah. And the same if I'm on stage, I will work on the music first, of course, and on the writing and the set list and blah, blah, but then I will make a video and be like, oh, I look very weird. And I think you should never do things that don't feel right and stuff. I'm not that, I'm not a pop guy really, but I think there is a lot of growth in that, to be like, is it really how I like it, and how does this come across, and what are all the aspects that I can work on maybe. So I think that was for the DVDs, and it was easy in the drum DVD market because the standard of production was sometimes quite low, and to then say like, you know what, let's treat this like a movie, or let's treat this like it's nice, and I'm still very proud of it.
It's amazing stuff. It's a lot to be learned out of those books and DVDs for sure. There's some go-to things for me all the time. We have some YouTube influencers around GearFest this year, and that's a huge thing in the drumming world.
Sure.
I think it seems to me like the drumming world has got that's the majority of the influencers. I know there's guitar players, all kinds of stuff, but it just seems like drummers are just exploding.
Yeah.
What's your feelings? Because you're a little bit old school, since you've come from writing books and doing DVDs and stuff, to this day and age where you could have 1 million followers and have a career being a YouTube influencer. How do you feel about that?
I once read somewhere, I don't know if this is true, but it's good for the example. I don't know about the numbers exactly, but in Germany we used to have like 250 different species of apples, right?
Okay.
Now, like long ago, now we have 4. And you would think out of evolution and out of like what is good, like that the 4 best, most nutritious, most tasty apples, they made the cut, right? No one wanted the other ones, but they are the ones that everyone's like, yeah, sure. That's not what happened. Those 4 apples are the one with the thickest shell. Why? Because you can throw them on a truck and they will arrive at the store and not look like crap. You can still. So the medium and the way of getting things across will always influence the thing itself and the content. So this is the one thing I would like people to be aware of, that the priority list got a little bit out of hand. There's amazing material and there are amazing guys who do these things, but if you have to do in a certain format, which means a certain length or in a certain frequency, so 1 lesson a day or like one a week or something, there will be things that are easier, like with the Apple, it's just easier to get to places and get out there. There's certain educational material that's easier to teach in that format. And this stuff, there will be more of that. Is that the best stuff, the most nutritious, the most important stuff? No. So to have the 5,000th paradiddle exercise might be nice, and it's harder to talk about feel and groove and how to focus during a set list and like things like that matter more than a program of 30 new drum licks to impress your neighbor or like whatever, however you can call them. And so this is the only thing for people to take care about, I think, as a consumer, to be like, it's not that the majority of the stuff that is out is directly proportional to its importance or its its quality or something, but there is always a thing through the online stuff. Certain things get taught more.
Right.
When I was young, it was very hard to get to see Tony Williams' left hand.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
or
Evan Jones and stuff. So now you can do this at 3 o'clock in the morning in your underwear if you want, after ordering something stupid. So that's great. But the paradigm has changed, that now people just have to go deep and practice deliberate ignorance. They have to be like, you know what, I'm doing this right now, but here's a nice cat video. No thanks, I'm doing this right now.
Totally.
But what about the new thing to get fast, blazing hands? Thanks, I'm doing this right now.
Yeah.
And these are the people that now will be successful in it now. And the last thing I want to say, sorry for taking so long for the answer, is that content and the thing is still the thing. Some of these guys, and I mean, I love them, they will sometimes give me tips on like how to set up different cameras and how to make it done. And then I see that I have twice as many followers as them sometimes on Instagram or something. And I think the reason is that all that camera stuff is great and all the recording quality is great, but it's really still about the thing. If you care about playing drums well, and if you care about helping people, and if you care about putting good stuff out, you can do it through like while walking down the street and hopefully saying something that creates value for someone else. And that's what success then really is. But I love it that there is a lot of stuff and a lot of excitement, and it's fun to see. And there's always something new to see for me as well. So.
All right, before we get into gear a little bit, so one last question.
Yeah.
How much do you really practice? I mean, you come up with some really elaborate things that you do. Your clinics are, deep. You have drum camps. So how much are you back home in your basement working on stuff? Still a lot of time spent?
Yeah, I mean, less than it used to be, but also different than it used to be.
Right.
So I play less time than I used to, but I get way more done now.
So you practice with purpose. Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. I write down stuff. I plan out. I always have a 3 monthly kind of cycle that I follow. And I did that I know in the last 15 years with these little Moleskine books, I know in the last 15 years what I practiced on what day, how I did, in which tempo, and so and then so there was always then either a smiley at the end or a skull, depending how I did,
right.
and that yeah, so I know, I definitely know I can get more done in 20 minutes now than I used to get done sometimes in a day.
Sure.
Because I was wasting a lot of time and I was doing all kinds of stuff. But I'm actually writing a book about effective practicing for musicians right now. So I'm really excited about that. So, yeah, but it's in phases more because I have lead this double life. I go on tour and I do wonderful things like this, meeting great people like you, and then I go back home and I'm a dad.
Yeah.
And I'll do that. So that is then the most time where when my son is at school, I'll try to get something done. So it's a little bit more phase and less like, okay, every day I'm doing blah 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 because it's just crazy with. But yeah, I still love it. Still enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, obviously your playing is amazing. So let's talk about gear.
Yes.
Let's talk about gear. You have your signature snare here. You've been a sonar player for a long time.
Yes.
Just quickly, what does sonar mean to you? Did you go to them because they're a German company? Did you seek them out? Did that matter to you at all?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, sonar was of course a lot around when I grew up and like had teachers and stuff. They all had sonar drum sets.
Right.
But no, I think we came together. I played at some drummy thing or some shows, and I got to meet people from sonar, and that's how the professional relationship kind of started. And yeah, I mean, sonar for me, the main thing, what it really means for me is that when I take a new drum head and it's so easy to tune it, I immediately get this feeling where I think like,
yeah, get the warm feeling in your belly, yeah.
And this is really, and this might sound silly, but this is really 99% of what this is about. Also, many people talk about support and blah and honestly, yeah, sometimes good things, sometimes bad things. This is the most important thing for me, that I have the drum and it's like, and I have this feeling of like, just sheer joy of playing it.
Sure.
It sounds hippie-ish, but I'm still an amateur in that sense.
That's cool.
And the other thing that I really came across, and I think is a thing, is that sonar makes drum sets. What I mean by that is that there are companies who have great tom sounds and a great snare sound and they're well built and they have a great bass drum sound, but they're different families sometimes. So you get toms that are do do do, you get a snare that's like pak, and the bass drum's like boop. So it's short, long, and if you go through the kit, simple, like separately, they're all kind of like meh, but it's not one animal.
Okay.
And what sonar is great at and feels very great and also makes the drums sound very natural in the room. It's this thing when you have headphones on and it doesn't seem weird. It's like, you can almost see the drum set when you hear it, is that you can tune the snare drum like a highest tom-tom. And I can tune my floor tom as a second bass drum. And it's do 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 da do 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 do, and it's one thing. That's a very musical and practical and wonderful quality that I really love about those drums.
Killer, man. That's awesome. I didn't realize how the history behind the company until I went to the factory. They've been around, but I didn't realize how long they've been around. It's a long time.
What they have on their side is that they made drums before there were drum sets.
Right.
Yeah. Before we put them together into one geographical location.
Right.
They already made the separate parts.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I've been playing your signature Minels for quite a while. We have a set in the studio here. They're fantastic sounds. And we were talking about this before we started this interview. You get into the gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to know how it's built and the ins and outs of the whole thing. So you did that with your cymbals as well, yeah?
I did. And when the companies are like, oh, Benny, so they know, like, but I did. So. I mean, with the ride, it took quite a while, and I got to give it to them. They were very patient and listened, and I mean sonar as well. It's a joy. So I grinded my cymbals. I wanted them to have a different surface. I wanted to have a bigger or a stronger bell with a thinner ride, so to speak. Which means you have to take a thick ride and then take away material from the bell out a lot, and of course, during the process, like people from mine were like, "Do you know how much material we lose through this? Like how expensive this is?" And I'm like, "Please."
Right.
So I think it's still the Biosans vintage Sandrite, the 20-inch, the 22, is still the cymbal that takes the most steps by hand until it's finished in their whole program. But again, like, to their credit, I experimented a lot. I sometimes try to hammer them myself. I put them in the oven and buried them in the garden and put things on it, and which is messy. Don't do it. But some things work, some things don't. And then I had these ugly cymbals, and someone from Midel saw me and was like, "What is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I gotta show you." So and they invited me, and I came there with my cymbal bag. And when I put them out, they were like, "What have you been doing to those cymbals?" And then I played them, and they're like,
Not bad.
And then, of course, they had a way to do it more elegantly and more beautifully and more reliable. And so I'm very happy with those things. And
Cool,
I
man.
think now I design almost like 18 or 19 like products for the drum industry now.
That's awesome.
That are all pretty. I mean, my signature sticks with Vic Firth. I love them a lot. The snare drum is wonderful, and got some bags and stuff.
Yeah, that's good. You're a businessman. You're making it's your career.
Well, it didn't start because of the business though at all.
Right.
And it was really a need to be like, yeah, let me mess with this. And actually, with some of the, I will not say the product that it was. One of the guys in the company said like, "So you really want it that way, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's great. I'm just gonna tell you, like, we're happy that you found your thing, but this is weird. Like, not many people will buy this stuff, and now it's the most sold thing in that segment." And
Yeah.
so I always get at NAMM show like an extra cigar somewhere,
There
or
you
like because it worked. Yeah. So I think, and that's where everything has to come from. It doesn't make any sense to be like, and that's what many people do now too. They try to find hacks, how to find their way around the business and stuff. And it never works unless it's valuable to everyone involved. If you can bring some value to the company with a good idea or something that they can sell, that's great. But it has to start with something that you also want to identify with, something that you're proud about and happy about, and then it works. And yeah, I'm very happy that it worked that way, and I'm very grateful.
Cool. So Benny, I know you are been on tour for a couple of weeks now. What's going on? What do you have in the future? You got some drum camps. You got some things happening. What's coming up with you down the line?
Yeah, the drum camps are a thing that are always going on. I don't make that many of them, but I want to make them, so I always look forward to them myself.
Okay.
So it's very egoistic.
That's cool.
but it's like, so I do like 3 or 4 a year max. And so that goes on. I always do one in March in New York. I do one in the summer in Germany to a specific subject. I have this wonderful location in Italy with wonderful food, of course, and like it's amazing. It's near Venice. So these are the kind of the things that I will do, and every once in a while I will do one somewhere else on the planet, like in Tokyo or whatever. So that's the thing that goes on. I write. The Grapefruit 2 just has been released, but I have now like 2-3 albums on my hard drive that can still come out. So we did wonderful new stuff with my band Moving Parts.
Yeah.
I have a project coming out with the wonderful and amazing Gary Husband.
Right.
So it's a duo project with him playing keys and I'm playing drums. Although I respect him so much as a drummer, and like I told you yesterday, it's the first, although it's just a duo, it's the first band where I'm not the best drummer in the band. Because
He's a monster.
he's
yeah.
amazing.
He's a great guy.
Amazing. And so that I plan to bring out the brass band album as a playback version for drummers, so they will have it minus the drums. I had to find all these mixes and get it. And I hope I can find, or I definitely will, in summer, like finish this book and this audiobook about effective practicing for musicians. It's a thing that's very near and dear to my heart, and I did a lot of research in the last 7 years for it, so it's really, it has to come out. So this is what's coming up. Yeah, this is actually,
That's
it's
a lot.
enough, isn't it?
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, killer, man. I wish you all the best for all of that
Thank
stuff.
you very much.
Much success to you. So I'm going to geek out a little bit here. Can we play a little bit? We're going to
Sure.
do you got your signature snare here. We're going to do a little jam, and then Benny's got a clinic, a little performance to do here pretty soon. So before we get to the snare, thank you so much
Oh, thank you. It's
Thanks for
great
coming to
be
Sweetwater.
here.
We've been trying to get you here for a while. I know because you're really busy, but just it's great to have you in the campus and the facility here. And you're a monster, man. I'm really just chuffed to have you here. It's just fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'm a fan, so thanks. Good to meet you. And
Thanks, man. All right, let's play.
yes.